From the Hindsight 2021 for the last week of February, I'm Damian Muziani, and here's your news. Leading off, cold weather gripped much of the nation last week, but nowhere as strongly as in Texas, where sub-freezing temps played havoc with the state's power grid, leaving millions in darkness and without heat or running water for days on end. In times like these, residents turn to leadership for guidance and support. However, Senator Ted Cruz gave them the cold shoulder instead and decided to escape Houston and flew to Cancun, Mexico to blissfully enjoy warm sun and empanadas. Once there, however, those ungrateful constituents of his Lone Star State actually had the gall to complain about being abandoned and ignored, crying out through chattering teeth and tweeting with frostbitten fingers. Luckily for Ted, he had a handy scapegoat alibi to blame the whole event on: his children. Cruz issued a press release from the sandy Ritz-Carlton Beach blaming the entire trip on his 10 and 12-year-old daughters, who I guess make all of these important decisions in the Cruz household, right? I mean, did they convince you to vote not guilty at the impeachment trial too, Ted? Cruz returned home just one day later to a very chilly reception back in Houston. And that's pretty cold, but not as cold as in Alaska. If you think you are barely getting through this winter, and that's foreshadowing for you, think of how Shannon Stevens of Haines, Alaska must feel. Shannon went outside to use an outhouse, and when she sat down, she was immediately bitten on her posterior by a black bear. You see why hindsight is important? This bear apparently broke into the latrine from under the backside of the unit for shelter. Not an ideal hibernation spot, by the way. Stevens immediately screamed and ran back inside her home, where her brother treated her bleeding wound, which kind of also sounds pretty humiliating and embarrassing if you think about it. The brother then went outside and spotted the bear in question and took pictures of his tracks in the snow. I can see the marketing on this coming down Fifth Avenue. Look for the new hot-selling Klondike bidet as the natural alternative to toilet paper. Oh, I see. That's still not cold enough for you. Well, how about minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit? That's the temperature on Mars right now, and NASA is celebrating after the successful landing of its Perseverance rover on the red planet last week. The SUV-sized craft landed by parachute during an event dubbed the 7 Minutes of Terror. Some viewers at home were confused and instead watched the 7 Minutes of Terror that landed last month in the form of a rambling YouTube video by Arnold Schwarzenegger, where his face kind of looks like he's been living on the Mars surface ever since filming Total Recall in 1990. After enduring this lengthy egomaniacal rant, Hindsight believes Arnold should have been brought to Mars aboard the Perseverance since, as we all know, in space, no one can hear you preen. And that's your news. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with Fresh Hindsight.